Thank you for tuning in to Be Relevant with Casimir Quinn. Today we have a very special episode at a remote location. First time doing that. Vice District in South Loop. Very famous for making their own beers. And what is so unique about this place, among other things, is that it is Black owned. I am here with the owner, Curtis. Curtis, thank you so much for allowing us to join you today. So tell us, what is so unique about this brewery besides the fact that it is Black owned?
You know what? Our entire goal was to have a space that reflected our basement where we started home brewing. And so we wanted something that was incredibly communal. So if you look around, you'll see that all the tables are for 8 to 10 people. There are no tables for 2. We want people to come in, play board games, eat, have a conversation, and obviously enjoy beers. But I think the most unique thing about us is that our entire focus is really on being communal. And I would say second to that, the educational piece. We really want to bring people into the space who might not have otherwise been beer drinkers. So we try to have a couple gateway beers and things like that to bring people over to this side of things.
And so how did you start off? What made you get interested in this? Was it you just drank a lot of beer and you said, hey, I want to start making my own, or?
That's partially true. And also my neighbor, who's my business partner, same thing. But we're both nerds at heart. We're both incredibly cheap at heart as well. And so we wanted to start brewing so that we would really save some money, we thought. And we ended up spending way more money on the ingredients and things like that. We started brewing 2-3 times a week and drinking equally as many times. And so, it became, one of those things that was like a hobby, became kind of a passion. And I don't know, now I guess it's an addiction to some extent. I mean, in a positive way. Yeah.
And you mentioned communal based, and it's also, you all were cheap at first when you got started.
Frugal, I should have said
frugal. But I do notice you guys are very unique in the fact that it's BYOF.
Yes.
Bring your own food. What made you go with that?
Well, when we were brewing beer in the basement, we got good at brewing beer. We were not necessarily chefs or restaurateurs. We didn't know how to operate a restaurant. And so, seriously, our focus was, let's do what we do best. Let's make beer. Let's bring people into the space. Let them have a good time. And, maybe down the road, if it makes sense, we'll bring on food. But right now, we're enjoying it, as it is.
And I think all of your guests are enjoying that as well. They're able to bring, you're down the street from a Giordano's, which is pretty amazing. That's fantastic. And another thing, speaking of being community friendly, pet friendly bar, you all. You can bring your dog, your cat, whatever. What made you do that? Is it still that basement theme, just making people feel comfortable?
So a couple things. One, even jumping back to the food, there's 65 places around here that deliver. So it also didn't make sense for us to put a kitchen back there. It would have cut the size of our production in half, so we have far less beers. As far as the pet piece, if you look around the South Loop, it was really something that was more for the neighborhood, because most people, it's a very vertical neighborhood. People live in high rises, so they have dogs, they have to walk them. So I can't tell you how much of our business comes from somebody who tells their husband or wife, I'm going to walk the dog. And they do. And they come in here and have a pint, then they go back home, right? And so it just kind of made sense, as we don't serve food, to be dog friendly. And one of the cool things we actually do is we take our spent grain and we make dog biscuits out of them. So right behind me actually is a jar of them. And we let people come in and take biscuits home for their dogs or enjoy them here.
That's amazing. So my favorite beer, Pleasure Trip. Tell me more about, I hear that was your recipe, that's your baby. Tell us exactly what's in that.
So the thing about the Pleasure Trip was I wanted to have a beer that I felt like would be a gateway beer. So it was something that is very approachable, but at the same time it's a craft beer. So you have different, hops and things like that in there as well to kind of give it a little bit of a nuanced flavor. And so people responded to it very well. A lot of it is because people come in and say, what's the lightest beer that you have? And, maybe they're not a heavy craft beer drinker. And so it's been great so far. I think initially we thought that it would be good because we figured it would help to bring women into the space. And, quite frankly, when women come in, then guys come in and follow and they spend money. So that works.
So aside from you have the treats for the dogs, BYOF, bring your own food, you also provide board games for groups that come in. That's pretty amazing. How did that collection grow so large?
You know what? That collection's been bought about 3 or 4 times at this point, because sometimes people come in and have a good time and then, pieces come up missing. But really, the thing is, we really wanted it to be like, what did we do when we were hanging out in the basement? And not necessarily if we were just drinking beers, but whether it was growing up or anything else. So, we have TVs that are covered up unless there's actually sports on. But we know people enjoy sports. We enjoy sports. We take the covers off. We watch TV. The board games is kind of the same vein, where we know people, they go, my place, people may come over, play bid whist or spades, things like that, after having a couple beers, or so we wanted that same type of environment. So we went and got the old school games, the Jenga, the Connect Fours, the Monopolies, and things like that. And then we have the more focused on adult games like the Cards Against Humanity and things like that as well. So yeah.
Very fun. And so then also you have, which is very unique, I think this is the only place that I've been in the South Loop that has this option, but the tasting of beers. Yeah. I've been to a few of the bars here, and to get the tasting is not even an option. So what made you go with that?
Well, again, for us, a lot of this is about education. And even just, we have food trucks and things like that to pair beers with different types of food. And so people may not want to come in and commit to a pint of a specific beer. They want to taste 3 or 4 beers, which makes sense. So we want to give them the opportunity to do that, to find that one they really like. They want to order a pint after that, then great. But we want to introduce people to as many beers as they can responsibly have, and so they can develop their palate and really figure out what works for them. So that's why the flights just make sense.
And does that mean that the person serving will actually be able to answer questions? Everybody is well aware of what's going on behind the bar?
Absolutely. I mean, the point is that if somebody is what we call a beer novice, they can come in, they have the same exact experience as somebody who is a beer snob, And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but some people just are very particular about their beers and things like that. And we want to make sure that our staff can communicate with both people and everybody in between.
So Curtis, explain to me what exactly these tanks are.
So they're called bright tanks, but think of them as just very large kegs of beer. And so essentially each one of these is 14 kegs of beer. And the unique thing about these is that they are all temperature controlled. So it gives you the ability to serve a beer at its best and optimal temperature. So if you want to serve something at 55 degrees and something else at 42 degrees, you can do that. And we have 8 of those tanks. And we serve 8 of our beers from these tanks, so we can make sure they're, as fresh as possible. Number one, going to the tap, and number 2, at the best possible temperature that they should be for consumption. So we try to have 5 or 6 staple beers: a blonde ale, an IPA, a double IPA, a porter, a stout, those types of beers. But one of the things that makes us a little bit unique is that we kind of brew what we want to brew, so to speak. We keep some staples because we don't want anybody to come in here and not recognize any of our beers, but we'll do a Belgian series, or we'll do what we're doing right now, which is a kitchen sink series, which is our attempt at sustainability. So we look and see what grain we have left over, and we just throw a recipe together with what we have in house, and we create a beer out of it. So we have 2 of those on right now. One is an IPA called My Alibi. The other is a brown ale called Downtown Brown. So yeah.
So this is a very nice space. How do you go about renting it or booking it out for special events?
So typically Mondays we are closed except for private events, and 95% of those private events are for nonprofits. So we always wanted to make sure that we were giving back, not just showing up in the neighborhood saying patronize us. So that's the Monday thing. Other days of the week, you just email marketing@vicedistrictbrewing.com, and Emily will take care of you. But we get requests all the time, and sometimes it's just a couple hours. Sometimes it's, want to run us out the entire night. But, capacity is 99, so it's more of a smaller, intimate venue for people.
What is your favorite part about actually being here, leaving the business to-dos aside and actually being in the facility?
It's the communal aspect, meeting people every day, having conversations. Beer is this unique thing that allows people to come together, and you start to find out a lot about somebody just over a beer, quite honestly. And so I enjoy meeting people from all kind of backgrounds. A lot of people will come here are visitors. They just hop off the Orange Line. They're on their way to Midway or something like that, or headed back out, and they stop in. So it's really that. Yeah.
And Curtis, I have to ask you before we wrap up, what makes you relevant?
Vice District gonna be individual.
Well, you know what? That's something. Vice District, we've been talking about what makes Vice District relevant. I think it's really the fact that you brew your own beers. That's pretty spectacular. But what makes you as an individual remain relevant and be relevant?
You know what? My one of my primary goals is to connect people and to see other people succeed. And I think those people would tell you I'm relevant because of that. That's the best I can say.
Guys, be sure to check out Vice District online. Curtis, how can they find you?
believe we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we have a general website, which is just vicedistrictbrewing.com. 1454 South Michigan for our Chicago location. We are opening a location, Homewood, this spring, which is at 18027 South Dixie Highway.
All right, guys, you heard the news. Be sure to check it out and support. Thank you.